Reject Nation, I'm in a Ross parking lot right now to save money on very overpriced parking. Anyway, I just got out of watching the highly anticipated, especially in our YouTube space, Chris Stuckmann's new movie, Shelby Oaks. In case you guys haven't seen the trailer, here's the basic setup. Shelby Oaks, there's this character named Mia. She's played by Camille Sullivan, and she's this woman who's searching for answers about her sister Riley, who vanished years ago along with her paranormal investigator group. They're called the Paranormal Paranoids. And as Mia digs into this old footage and these forgotten leads, she's drawn back to this eerie town of Shelby Oaks, where the line between imagination and something darker grows increasingly more blurred. Now, before I dive into my thoughts and feelings, I want to be totally upfront about a couple of things. First, I was one of the many people who contributed to the Kickstarter that helped get this movie made, so I've been anticipating this film for quite some time. Second, I did have the fortunate opportunity to sit down with Chris himself for this very long, in-depth conversation about life, filmmaking, the journeys, obstacles of being a YouTuber, making that leap into feature directing, and at one point we even talked about his philosophy of not reviewing movies he doesn't like. I straight up told him that if I don't like this movie, I'll have to be honest. Even though I gotta have that privilege with him, you're still gonna get my real thoughts. That said, if there is any layer of bias here, here's what I think it would be. Doing all that research before speaking with Chris, it did give me a deeper sense of what this movie is about and why he made it. That pre-understanding, I would say, definitely enhanced the experience for me. And being aware that it's his first feature as a writer-director did shape how I watched it, but even with all that, I feel like I'd be walking out with practically the same opinion either way, honestly. The first thing I want to give major props to is the ambition and execution, though, of the writing and the directing. This film pulls off this fascinating blend that's part found footage, part traditional horror, or part traditional filmmaking, I should say, and that marriage is not easy. The tones of those two subgenres are so different. If the transitions aren't handled well, it could feel like tonal whiplash, but Chris and his team, they managed to make it work, and honestly, the first time the film shifts gears, you could feel the whole audience react. It was kind of a badass moment, actually. A lot of the found footage and true crime documentary segments, they felt so raw and natural that I assumed they must have been improvised and cleaned up in the edit. Come to find out, turns out all of that was scripted. That shocked me when I found that out later, because I think it speaks to the naturalism of both the writing and the performances. That ability to make scripted material feel messy, I mean that in a complimentary way, feel messy and authentic, is one of the hardest things to pull off in horror. Visually, this movie has this like heavy, dreadful atmosphere, yet there's a very engaging pace to it. Like, it gets going into the ride pretty quick. There's a real style behind the lens, but it never tips over into showy for the sake of being showy. It walks that line where it looks polished and often way more expensive than its actual budget, but still retains that grit. The practical effects they're genuinely unsettling, and when paired with the visual effects, you get moments that really crawl under your skin. And something I didn't expect to say, Chris and his team, they created a world. I literally had to Google afterwards whether Shelby Oaks is a real place in Ohio. I didn't even bother to think that. That's how convincing this movie is at selling its own mythology. It taps into that urban legend energy where you start wondering if this history is something based on an already existing something or another. I can't find the word for some reason, but that world building is horror done right. And this film rests heavily on Camille Sullivan as Mia. She absolutely delivers. She's a woman who sacrificed so much of her own well-being in pursuit of her sister. The way Camille plays her is layered. Sometimes it's desperate, sometimes it's reckless, sometimes it's heartbreakingly strong. Early on, though, I did catch myself questioning her choices in that horror movie way of is she being stupid right now? Is she desperate? Is it both? You know, those moments where horror protagonists go off alone and you're like, come on. But the movie earns those choices by showing how isolated she is. No one supports her. No one believes her. So she has no choice but to confront this darkness herself. And that flips a lot of horror cliches on their head.
Friends, family, I wasn't raised what you would call financially literate. At a young age, we did lose our house. I have what you might call money trauma, I guess. So when it came to running a business here, I take that very serious, and I know how to run this business. But when it comes to investing outside of that, I've always felt scared. And that's why Acorns has been absolutely amazing. For you guys who don't know what Acorns is, it's a financial wellness app that helps you invest for your future, save for tomorrow, and spend smarter today all in one place. Favorite part, you really don't need to be like a finance whiz. I use words like whiz now. With just your spare change, Acorns automatically invests into an expert-built portfolio, and they even have a checking account that invests as you spend, and an emergency fund that grows your money over time. Before we signed up with them, I remember distinctly one of our hosts, Roxy Strong, try her. Tell me once how her investment in Acorns once really helped get her out of a very bad financial spot. And that, of course, stuck with me, so I went on the journey with them, and it is nice opening up that app. And I really love that you don't need like a big chunk of change. You could start with such a small amount. First month, I started like with $20. Now I go with $100 because, fortunate enough, we can. So, Reject Nation, you can sign up now at acorns.com/realrejects, and Acorns will boost your new account with a $5 bonus investment. Because we're talking about money, I do have to say. Paid non-client endorsement, tier 2 compensation provided. Investing involves risk. Acorn Advisors LLC and SEC registered investment advisor. View disclosures at acorns.com/rejects. Thank you again, Acorns, for being part of my financial wellness life.
Instead of spending half the runtime being gaslit or dismissed as crazy, Mia gets agency. She's afraid, yes, but she knows she has to move forward alone. That makes her a protagonist you actually root for. And when she's terrified, it feels so damn real. Those moments of fear help sell the scares tenfold. I also want to shout out Sarah Durn as Riley. Even though she only pops in intermittently, those moments have to land hard, and they do. Riley's journey is told in this non-traditional way, but Sarah nails every single beat she's in. I feel like this movie does balance character-driven dread with moments of genuine terror, and when it does aim for scares, it delivers. There were sequences where the entire theater went silent, and then you'd hear that ripple of nervous laughter moving across the crowd, that kind of nervous laughter you only get in a horror movie. That's like a great communal horror movie experience. I got genuinely scared a few times. There are twists and turns that kept me on edge. One twist in particular absolutely shook me. I didn't see it coming at all, and it's a kind of reveal I'll never forget. It was the first thing I was talking with people about after the credits rolled. The music and sound design is great. The score, it deserves serious praise. It's unnerving, creative. It feels like a legit horror score. Just consider the budget. Sometimes you expect that, but it's not. It's not just like stock sounds. It's not just like stock sounds pasted over scenes. It's paired with that smart sound design, and you've got tension that lingers. I always look out for sound design in indie horror because it's usually like the first thing that feels amateur, but here it's sharp, calculated, and Chris knows when to let the silence do the work. Although within the silence, if there's like one beat that I thought was a little bit repetitive, it sometimes with Mia when she's like alone and something scary is happening is a lot of that like she's like, you can't see my face, but it's like she's scared, and then she's this very slow turn to see what's behind her. I felt like that was a little bit of too much of a repeat beat, but even though it was repetitive, still kind of got me every time. Anyway, all in all, Shelby Oaks, it did pretty much give me exactly what I showed up for. It's fun, it's creepy, it dips into that elevated horror territory without ever drowning itself in self-seriousness. It's smart, but it's not pretentious. It's stylish, but never masturbatory. However, if I have one big critique, its most noticeable shortcomings for me about in the last 10 to 15 minutes. Personally, I do think this movie could have used an extra 10 to 20. That finale has some awesome stuff, but in its final moments, a few things felt a little bit rushed, almost B-movie in how quickly they were handled. Like, it's still entertaining, but I think a longer version could have made those beats hit a lot harder. It's tough to explain without spoiling, but for me, the last stretch didn't land as powerfully as the rest of the film. I heard someone say, especially about something else, that it felt tacked on. I wouldn't say that. Like the choices definitely feel intentional, like that was always a part of the story, so it definitely wraps up the story, but I did feel like we needed to live in some other stuff more, allow more breath, but I really can't talk about it. But when you see it, maybe we can argue about it. And in all honesty, it's a small gripe in the bigger picture. The journey itself is strong. Again, it's creepy, scary, atmospheric, it's ambitious, it made me tense, made me laugh nervously with the crowd, it shocked me at times, and it impressed me on a craft level, and for a debut feature, it's really impressive. So yeah, I enjoyed the hell out of this movie. Kudos to Chris. In a weird way, I feel really proud of him, and I recommend you go watch Shelby Oaks. Leave a like on this video. Get rejectinized. And it only works with Stuckmann's words. It's Stuckmanized. He's got a thing. All right. Yeah, this video is done.